Ever feel like you're spending more time like wrestling with your code editor than actually, like coding?
Hmm.
I've been there. That's why this deep dive is all about unlocking the superpowers hiding within, VS Code extensions, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about turning a good code editor into like your own personal coding dojo of efficiency,
Yeah.
especially if, like me,
Mm.
you're all about working smarter, not harder.
And you've come to the right place. What's so cool about VS Code is that it's not just an editor. It's a platform, right? With
Yeah.
over 30,000 extensions on the VS Code marketplace. It's easy to get lost, but that's where we come in.
Mhm.
Think of us as your curators of coding awesomeness.
Exactly. We're going deep on the must-haves based on Transform Your Coding, 20 must-have VS Code extensions, World Insider 2024.
Right.
But not just like listing features. We're talking about why these matter to you as a coder.
And that's key, right? Because different extensions solve different problems.
Right.
Are you trying to wrangle unruly JavaScript?
Mm-hmm.
You need to collaborate seamlessly with your team.
Yeah.
Or maybe just crave a more visually appealing coding environment.
Yes. It's so easy to go overboard downloading extensions, only to have them like clutter up your editor.
Yeah.
Before we even get to specific recommendations, what should we consider when evaluating if an extension is, truly worthwhile?
It's easy to be seduced by flashy features.
Oh, yeah.
But the real gems are the ones that address your specific pain points.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. What are those moments in your workflow where you find yourself thinking, there has to be a better way?
Ah, yes.
Those are the problems that the best VS Code extensions are designed to solve.
Okay, so it's all about finding those force multipliers for like your coding style. It's like, remember back in the day when we used to manually format code?
Yeah.
Now an extension can do that for us in a flash.
Ugh.
Speaking of, our source article has this cool category called the Productivity Powerhouse. Let's dive into that first.
Love it. It's all about reclaiming those precious minutes, and often those time savings come from understanding your code base better.
Mm-hmm.
That's where our first featured extension comes in, GitLens.
Okay.
It's like having a time machine for your code,
Wow.
showing you the history of who wrote what and when directly within your editor.
It's one thing to see the final product of a code file. It's another to see its evolution, right?
Right.
Especially when you're debugging, knowing the why behind a line of code can be incredibly helpful.
Mhm.
Plus, I don't know about you, but I have a terrible memory. Bookmarks, another extension in this category, has been a lifesaver for me. It lets you, bookmark specific lines or sections of your code and jump back to them instantly.
It's like leaving yourself digital breadcrumbs throughout a massive code base.
Yeah.
No more getting lost in the scroll. And while we're on the topic of efficiency, let's talk about live share.
Okay.
This one's a game changer, particularly for those who collaborate remotely or work on open source projects.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine being able to invite a colleague into your coding environment in real time, almost like they're sitting right next to you.
That's such a good point.
Huh.
Pair programming, debugging sessions, even just getting like a quick second opinion.
Right,
It's like having that instant back and forth, even if you're, miles apart.
Exactly.
Plus, for folks new to a team or a code base, being able to follow along visually can be so much easier than trying to explain everything over chat.
Exactly. It reduces that friction of remote collaboration.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about another pain point, code style consistency.
Mm-hmm.
It might seem trivial, but inconsistent formatting can lead to confusion and slow down code reviews.
Yeah.
Enter Prettier, an opinionated code formatter that enforces a consistent style across your entire project.
Prettier is like that friend who always looks effortlessly put together, even if they just rolled out of bed,
Right.
They just have that natural sense of style, and your code can too. But seriously, having everyone on the same page with spacing, indentation, and semicolons makes the code base so much cleaner and easier to read.
Mm-hmm.
It's less about personal preference and more about creating a shared language for the team.
Precisely. And speaking of shared languages, our final productivity powerhouse pick addresses another common pain point, especially when working with multiple files or making bulk edits. I'm talking about those moments when you need to edit multiple lines simultaneously while preserving capitalization.
Oh, tell me about it. I used to dread those tasks.
Right.
It felt like I was one typo away from a major headache.
Well, fret no more, because the multiple cursor case preserve extension is here to save the day. It might seem like a small thing, but trust me, once you start using it, you'll wonder how you ever lived without it.
It's those little quality of life improvements that make all the difference, right?
Yeah.
And speaking of quality, that leads us perfectly into our next category.
Yeah. And that focus on quality brings us to our next category, the code quality guardians. Because let's face it, no matter how efficient your workflow, a buggy program is still a buggy program.
It's like having a fancy sports car with a sputtering engine, looks great, but won't get you very far. So how do we supercharge our code's reliability?
Think of it like this. You wouldn't publish a written article without, like, proofreading it carefully, right?
Yeah.
The extensions in this category act as your dedicated proofreaders, but for code, but with a superpower boost.
Nice.
First up, the titan of JavaScript, ESLint.
ESLint is like that firm but fair professor who expects the best from your code, right?
Right.
It analyzes your JavaScript for potential errors, vulnerabilities, and even style inconsistencies.
What I find so valuable about ESLint is that it's not just about pointing out problems. It often suggests solutions, turning those gotcha moments into learning opportunities.
Oh, nice.
Plus, for teams or larger projects, you can even customize the rule set to enforce your specific coding conventions.
So it's like having a customizable style guide enforced automatically. No more debating tabs versus spaces and code reviews. And speaking of catching issues early, the next code quality guardian on our list casts a wider net beyond a single language.
Right. If ESLint is the specialist, then SonarLint is the general practitioner of our code quality team.
Okay.
It integrates with VS Code to analyze code for a wider range of potential problems. The code smells, security vulnerabilities, those sneaky issues that might not throw an immediate error, but could cause headaches down the line.
It's like having a second set of, well, sonar on your submarine, scanning for dangers lurking beneath the surface.
Precisely. And let's not forget those seemingly small errors that can trip us all up typos. That's where our final pick for this category comes in, code spell checker.
Oh, yeah.
It might sound simple, but incorrect function names or misspelled variables can cause a surprising number of bugs.
It's easy to gloss over typos, especially when you're, like, laser focused on the logic. Code spell checker is like having a helpful proofreader gently nudging you. Hey, you might want to double check that spelling.
It's all about reducing cognitive load so you can focus on the bigger picture. And speaking about bigger pictures, while these code quality tools work across various languages, some extensions cater specifically to the nuances of a particular language. That leads us to our next category, language-specific superstars.
Music to my ears. I love how VS Code can become this tailored coding environment. So what language are we starting with?
We're kicking things off with a language near and dear to many developers' hearts, especially in the data science and machine learning world, Python. The aptly named Python extension for VS Code provides everything you need for a smooth coding experience, turning VS Code into a full-fledged Python IDE.
We're talking IntelliSense, those helpful code suggestions as you type, debugging tools, linting, even integration with Jupyter Notebooks, a must-have for data scientists. It's like having a Swiss Army knife specifically designed for Python development.
And just like a good Swiss Army knife, it's packed with tools but still feels streamlined and intuitive to use. But the world of web development wouldn't be the same without this next dynamic duo, JavaScript and TypeScript. And the JavaScript and TypeScript Nightly extension is a must-have for anyone working with these languages.
Nightly, you say? That sounds intriguing.
It means you're getting the absolute latest features and updates, often even before they're officially released. This is for those who like to live on the bleeding edge of web development.
I can see the appeal. Always being ahead of the curve. Now, while Python and JavaScript are certainly popular, we can't forget the old but gold language that still powers so much of the world, Java.
Yes, Java. Robust, reliable. And now, thanks to the Java extension pack, a joy to work with in VS Code, this pack bundles several extensions to provide comprehensive Java support.
We're talking debugging, testing, project management with Maven and Gradle, all within the familiar comfort of VS Code.
Right.
No need to juggle multiple IDEs. Okay, so we've covered tools to boost our productivity, enhance code quality, and streamline our workflow for specific languages. But what about the look and feel of our coding sanctuary?
You're talking about the importance of aesthetics. It might seem superficial, but the right theme can significantly impact focus and even coding enjoyment.
Yeah.
That's where our next category comes in, theming and customization.
It's true, a little ambiance can go a long way. Staring at a bright screen all day can be rough on the eyes. I've been a huge fan of, like, dark themes lately.
Yeah.
Easier on the eyes, less fatigue.
And a classic choice for that is OneDark Pro,
Right.
known for its readability.
Hmm.
What I like about it is that it's also highly customizable, so you can tweak it to match your style.
It's like finding the perfect lighting for your coding setup.
Yep.
And if you're into that sleek modern look, there's Material Icon theme, which gives your VS Code a bit of a material design makeover. Honestly, having those visually distinct icons makes navigating a large project so much easier.
It's amazing how much visual clarity can improve, like workflow. But speaking of managing multiple projects, have you ever found yourself with several VS Code windows open and gotten things mixed up? I know I have.
Oh, all the time. Especially when switching between different tasks or clients. It's like trying to juggle multiple browser windows, things start to blur together.
We'll say hello to Peacock. This nifty extension lets you assign unique color themes to different workspaces.
Okay,
It's a subtle change, but makes a world of difference in keeping things organized.
I love that. No more accidentally editing the wrong file. Okay, so we've covered making VS Code more visually appealing, but what about when things get really hairy? I'm talking about the dreaded debugging phase. Sometimes it feels like searching for a needle in a haystack of code.
We've all been there. And to make that search a bit less painful, we have a category dedicated to just that: debugging and testing dynamos.
Okay.
First up, a true lifesaver for web developers. Debugger for Chrome.
Ah, the classic. If you're doing front-end development, this extension is essential. It lets you debug your JavaScript code right within VS Code, setting breakpoints, stepping through the execution flow, all while seeing the results live in your Chrome browser. No more console.log gymnastics.
It's such a time saver.
Yeah.
And speaking of streamlining the debugging process, there's Console Ninja. This one's all about bringing your console output directly into your VS Code editor. No more
Oh.
constantly switching back and forth between windows.
It's those little workflow tweaks that make a huge difference in the long run. Having your console logs in line with your code, pure genius. But sometimes it's not about debugging an entire application, but just quickly testing out a code snippet or a new idea.
And for that, there's Code Runner. This versatile extension lets you run code snippets or even entire files in a variety of languages right from within VS Code.
It's like having a mini coding playground built right into your editor.
Right.
Perfect for experimentation. Now we've covered a lot of practical problem-solving extensions, but things are about to get a little bit futuristic.
It's time to talk about the AI-powered coding companions. Those extensions that feel like they're ripped straight from a sci-fi movie. The pace of innovation here is incredible.
Right, there's been so much buzz and honestly some skepticism too. But I'm curious, what can AI really do for us coders?
Well, imagine having a coding buddy who's always there to offer suggestions, help you complete lines of code, even generate entire functions based on your comments. That's the promise of GitHub Copilot.
Okay, that does sound pretty amazing. It's like having an AI pair programmer looking over your shoulder. But what about the quality of the suggestions?
That's the million-dollar question, and it depends on the context.
Right.
Copilot can be incredibly helpful for common tasks, boilerplate code, or even just sparking ideas. However, it's important to remember that it's still a tool, and the responsibility for writing clean, efficient, and most importantly, correct code ultimately lies with the human developer.
It's like having a really advanced autocomplete but for code. Still needs a discerning eye.
Exactly. And speaking of discerning eyes, while Copilot is getting a lot of attention, there are other AI tools emerging that focus on specific aspects of coding, like testing.
Oh, testing. Always essential, often tedious. Tell me more.
So there's this really interesting extension called Codium AI that uses AI to generate unit tests for your code.
Wait, so instead of me having to painstakingly write out all those tests, this AI can do some of the heavy lifting.
You got it. Now, it's not going to replace the need for thoughtful testing strategies entirely, but it can definitely help automate the more mundane parts of the process and even catch edge cases you might have missed.
That's a game changer right there.
Ah,
Okay, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about another aspect of a coding that's often overlooked but can make or break a project. Documentation.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Well-documented code is a thing of beauty. It's like the difference between reading a clear, concise essay and deciphering a cryptic message. And to help you write clearer documentation, we have a couple of handy extensions in this category.
Hit me with your best shot.
First up, if you're working with JavaScript or TypeScript, you need to check out Document. This extension automatically generates JSDoc-style comments for your functions, classes, and variables.
That's a lifesaver. No more staring blankly at my code trying to remember what I wrote last week.
It's a great way to build good documentation habits and ensure consistency. And to make the process of actually writing and reviewing that documentation even smoother, there's Enhanced Markdown Preview. This extension provides a live preview of your Markdown files right within VS Code, so you can see how your formatting links and images will look without having to constantly switch to a separate preview window.
Oh, that's so helpful. Especially when working on readme files or any kind of longer form technical writing. No more endless back and forth.
Exactly. And finally, no discussion about essential VS Code extensions would be complete without mentioning tools for working with APIs, those ubiquitous messengers of the web.
The glue that holds so much of our modern internet together. What do we have in this category?
First up, the heavyweight champion of API testing and development, Postman City. And with the Postman extension for VS Code, you can bring all those powerful features, sending requests, inspecting responses, managing your API workflow right into your coding environment.
It's like having mission control for your APIs right there in VS Code. No need to switch tools.
Precisely. But if you're looking for a lighter weight alternative, REST Client is a great option. It's a simple but powerful extension for sending HTTP requests and viewing responses directly within VS Code.
Perfect for quick API checks or debugging without leaving your coding sanctuary.
Exactly. And finally, before we wrap up our whirlwind tour of must-have VS Code extensions, we have a couple of miscellaneous must-haves that didn't quite fit in the other categories but deserve an honorable mention. First up, for all you front-end wizards out there, Live Server.
Ah, yes. Live Server is one of those extensions that once you start using it, you wonder how you ever lived without it. It basically spins up a local development server that automatically reloads your web page in the browser every time you save a change to your code.
It's a game changer for front-end development, especially when working with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. No more manually refreshing your browser every 2 seconds.
Right, talk about a productivity booster. And last but not least, we have regex snippets, an extension that's a lifesaver for anyone who regularly works with regular expressions.
Those powerful but often cryptic patterns for searching and manipulating text, regex snippets, provides a handy collection of pre-built regular expressions for common tasks, as well as tools to help you test and debug your own regex patterns. It's like having a cheat sheet and a tutor all in one.
I love it. And you know what? That's a wrap on our deep dive into the world of VS Code extensions. We've covered a lot of ground, from boosting productivity and ensuring code quality to exploring the cutting edge of AI-powered coding.
And we've really just scratched the surface. With over 30,000 extensions on the VS Code marketplace, the possibilities are practically endless.
The takeaway here isn't to go on an extension installing spree, but rather to be thoughtful about the tools that can enhance your personal coding style and workflow. Think about those recurring pain points, those moments where you find yourself wishing for a better way.
Exactly. The beauty of VS Code is that you can customize it to fit your unique needs and preferences. It's like building your own custom coding cockpit.
I love that analogy. So as you continue your coding journey, remember to explore the VS Code Marketplace, experiment with different extensions, see what sticks, and don't be afraid to iterate and evolve your setup over time.
And most importantly, have fun with it. Because at the end of the day, that's what coding is all about. The joy of creation and the satisfaction of building something awesome.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this exciting exploration, and happy coding, everyone.